Hey y'all, and welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm Nicole with Bushel and a Peck Designs. Today we are working on a westerny themed tumbler. I'm not usually into western designs. I don't know, they just don't always flow with me, or they don't inspire me, I guess. I don't know, but I just don't usually work on them. So today I was totally inspired and we're working on one. So the first thing I did was I'm working on a 30-ounce straight tumbler from the Tumbler supply store. I spray painted it brown, which I used Color Shot brownie points. And then I let that dry completely. I gave it a coat of epoxy. And then while the epoxy is wet, we are going to be spraying these colors on it. And it is all just a random hodgepodge of here and there spritz of spray paint. Give it some time. It's a completely trust the process here. So the first thing I did was Smoke and Mirrors from Color Shot, and then Iron Lac Gold, Color Shot Mermaid, Iron Lac Matte Black, and then some Rust-Oleum Apple Red. And then once I am happy with those random spots, I give it a spritz of 91% rubbing alcohol. And then we're going to go back in and add some more colors. What we're basically doing is building it up so it has some dimension, and it really gives it this rusty, grungy effect. That's what the way the alcohol reacts to the spray paints, and then the spray paints mix and crack, and I don't know, I don't understand all the science behind it, but it looks amazing in the end. So I just continued to go back and forth, giving it some extra coats or extra spots of spray paint and then a little bit more alcohol. You don't want to go too crazy with the alcohol. I've had it in the past where it really created some fish eyes, but so just make sure you don't go overdo it. But I just kind of went back and forth, and then when I was pretty happy with it, this turner that I have doesn't switch directions, so I just leaned it up and leaned it down to just kind of give it a little bit of movement, I guess you could say. And then I went in a little bit more with Mermaid, and then I brought in Rust-Oleum's Coastal Sage. It was just a little bit lighter. You know, when you see those rusty spots, it has that dimension with the blacks and the browns and some gold tones and some turquoisey even. So I was just going for the dimension and the contrast with the different colors. And then once I added a little bit of that, I am going to give it a little bit more gold. The gold is my favorite part, so I really want that to be like the main focus. And then a little bit more of the alcohol. See how it adds those little spots, and then they just kind of, I don't know, separate but not fully. And then a little bit more gold and a little bit more brown. And then a little bit more alcohol. I'm telling you, trust the process for this. It all turns out so cool in the end. And then the next thing I'm going to do is take a paper towel, but kind of a rough paper towel. So it's a Costco paper towel, if you want to know. Not like a Viva, because those are so like cloth-like. This one has some grooves in it. So I just wadded it up, and then I'm just pouncing it on there just to kind of even it out and give it a little bit more texture. This also helps so that it doesn't get pulled up in like any spots. It kind of helps flatten it out, but then gives it a little texture along that same concept. And then after that, I took the gold and I'm just going to give it some little sputters. See how it looks so grungy and distressy and like patinaed? That's the look we're going for. Just the way that all the colors mix, it's so cool of a process. And then I'm going to give it a little sputter with the black as well. I just want some almost like greasy looking spots, I guess you could say. But I'm just going to then let that sit completely. And then I did add one more spritz of rubbing alcohol. And then I let it dry completely. You can see here, see how it's starting to like form. It will all level out. And then I just let it sit and dry completely. When that was all done, we are going in with a template from Diamonds and Dust, but I'm going to, originally I was going to use this template as it was, but then I got this kind of different idea, so we're going with it. So I really just liked this V portion of it, and I'm going to use some vinyl, but I wanted a lot of that textury, grungy background to show through as well because I love the way it turned out. So I just took that V portion and then I'm just grouping some together and spacing some single ones out just to kind of make this random looking pattern. I want to say a westerny looking pattern, but I don't know what it's really called. So just kind of some V's, and then we're going to add that to half of the tumbler. So I measured what half of it would be, and then I made a box that was the same size, width and height, and then I grouped all of those V's together and then sized it, and then I'm going to use the crop tool and it will crop it down to the exact size that I need for that half of the tumbler. I cut that out of this half of this vinyl that I got from K. Hobbs Designs. It was like a split sheet, so the bottom portion had some flowers and some western boots on it. And originally I was going to use that portion too, but I'm telling you, this was one of those trust the process and the tumbler's going to tell you the design, not you tell it what you want it to make kind of thing. So I peeled all that off in one swoosh so that I could place it all evenly, and I was going to just like eyeball it and lay it down flat, but then I was a little worried that I would not get it straight. So I picked up this rolly tool that I got from Doobie's Treasures on Etsy. Actually, I got mine in a cup swap, but that's where you can get it if you want it. This thing is amazing. I just stood it up and ran my little water-based pen down the side so that I could get a line down the middle, so I knew that those points in the V is where I could line it up and it would be straight. So I just lined that up and placed that down on the tumbler very carefully, and I did end up getting it straight thanks to that line. And then the pen mark will just wash right off. When I cut it, I did size it so that it was just a hair longer than what I wanted it, because I'm going to use my Cami Page Boutique edge trimmer, and that way I knew I would have completely straight edges. So once I folded over or folded down that edge, I'm going to use that edge trimmer on the lowest setting and trim both the bottom and the top just to make sure we have completely straight lines. I take that back. I don't think I used it on the top, but because I had only had the one coat of epoxy on here, I did scratch it up a little bit. So I just took this gold metallic paint pen and I'm just going to fill it in. Since we had gold paint in the first mixture, nobody will ever be the wiser. And we're going to cover it up with a gold stripe at the end anyway, so I wasn't too worried about it. And then I'm going to tape off with some painter's tape the vinyl side, because I'm going to be adding some cow print on this not vinyl side. You'll see in the end, I didn't end up liking it. I hated it, so we covered it up, but this was still the process and the steps that I took for that. So I mixed a little bit of glitter glue. I think I was using the Artistry brand, and some white chalk paint, and I'm just going to add that to the center of this open space. And I just took a paper towel because I wanted it kind of distressy looking as well. So I just dipped it in the paint mixture and just made a rough circle there in the middle. And since it has the glitter glue in it, As soon as I'm happy with that, we're going to just add the glitter immediately. There's no real science to this or real anything specific. I just went in to make a circle. I didn't want it so precise on the edges, so that's why I was using this to give it those distressy edges. And once I was done with that, we are going to use Abominable from Diamonds to Dust glitter. I didn't want like a color shifty. I wanted white, but I didn't want like a color shifty or too sparkly. So this was the perfect white color. And then I cleaned up the little, like, I call it the static glitter, where it gets stuck to the other parts of the tumbler. And I just wiped that away with a dry, clean paintbrush. And then we're going to add some cow spots to this. This was my original idea. And like I said, I just hated it once it was done. So I'm taking alcohol ink from Ranger, and it is espresso, I think, and then a brown from Hobby Lobby. And while this is still wet, and it has to be raw glitter for this to work, because the cow spots move within the glitter to make it kind of that odd shaped, not perfect cow spot. So I just went in with the espresso color first and added some spots, and then to get those tiny little spots, I just fling it on there, and that gives it that extra little authentic cow print look. I did clean up a little bit where I got it outside of that glitter area. And then I took the darker color, and I'm just adding it right in with that same spots already. It just gives it that two-tone, like, authentic-y cow print look. And then after that, I sprayed it with, once it was dry, I sprayed it with Rust-Oleum's Clear Glassy spray paint, and that was my mistake. I should not have sealed it. I should have just sealed it with like some glitter glue, not, I don't know, not the spray paint, but I peeled that off, sprayed it, then gave it a coat of epoxy, and that's where it all went downhill. As soon as I sprayed it, I knew I messed up because it started to change the color of that alcohol ink. So with the coat of epoxy on it, it had some spots, had some like purpley tone to it. So I took this tooled leather vinyl from AB Designs Co. and we're just gonna cover it up. We're gonna go with plan B because we're resourceful over here and we'll just make it work, right? They're not accidents or mistakes, they're happy little accidents. So we're rolling with it. So I just cut it wide enough to cover up that spot. Also, another reason that I was kind of glad it didn't work out is because the decal that I had was not white backed, so you couldn't see the cow spot underneath it anyway, so it was not meant to be there. I love the way this ended up turning out. So I covered the cow spot with this tooled leather. Here I am, I just applied it like the hinge method. I cut it a little bit longer to make sure that I did not cut it too short. Taped off the edge so that I could just run my X-Acto knife down that side of the painter's tape and cut a straight line. Because Lord knows I can't cut a straight line to save my life. Then I'm going to go in and do a ton of striping. I am using the textured metallic gold from Tech Rep Crafts, and I just cut a bunch of random sizes. So I had some super thin, some medium, and a little bit thicker ones. And some of the thicker ones I'm gonna use in this V section and just place it down the centers of the open areas just to mimic those V's, but add a little bit more dimension and texture to this side. So I'm just going to trim all those off, and then I'm going to take a super thin stripe and add that to the outside of each vinyl V. Just, I mean, it looks good without it, but I just wanted it to blend it all together and then just kind of outline those V shapes as well. I feel like the super tiny stripes outlining the V's really help enhance the design. It doesn't take anything away from the design. And when I'm working on things, I really try to look at things like that. Where is that going to enhance the overall design and look, or is it going to make it too busy or take away from the look that I'm going for? So that's why I wanted to cut them super thin. And then in some of the skinnier boxes in the little open V spots, I'm also going to add some of those super tiny striping lines just for some extra. Even though I wasn't going to add lines in the little ones, I thought that they all needed some kind of box. And then in this very bottom one, I used a medium and a super thin. And then here I am lining the very bottom with a medium thickness stripe. You can't even tell that we used that paint marker on there. So I'm going to trim that off as well. And then I'm also going to add a thick stripe to the top and the bottom edge of that tooled leather vinyl. I decided last minute to give it a super thin stripe above those stripes as well. And then I gave it a coat of epoxy, and then it sat here for a few days because I couldn't figure out what to put on it. And then all of a sudden it came to me, so I cut out of the same gold textured vinyl, blame it all on my roots. I thought that was the perfect saying to go with this tumbler. And I made it big so that it took up a lot of the space of that tooled leather, because there's not a lot of elements going on. I mean, it was a long process to get all the steps for this, but there's not a lot per se going on in this tumbler. So I really wanted those words to stand out. So I cut them big, and I just had this cool font on my computer that looked very Western-y. So I made an offset. I just typed it out, spaced it, and then I made an offset. So I cut the offset out in this same gold, and then I had this turquoise vinyl that I've had forever. It's got like some bubbles on it. I don't even know what brand it is. It might be Cricut. I really don't know. But it matched perfectly, and I was like, let's do it. Let's go for it. So I added that to the top. And then I was like, it needs one more thing, because you guys know I just can't stop sometimes. So I cut some thin lines with this same turquoise color, and I added a thin stripe on the top and the bottom just to bring it all around and bring it all together. And that was it. Finally, I gave it 2 final coats of epoxy, and this beauty was all done. I just want to take a minute again to thank all of y'all for all of your love, support, your such kind comments that you always leave me on my videos. I truly appreciate all of you guys. I want you to stay tuned because starting in May, I am going to have a little Mother's Day series that will be producing a new tumbler every day for a week. So stay tuned for that. And that's it for today. I hope that I have inspired you in one way or another. If you make something from any of my tutorials, or if I inspired you, I would love for you to give me a tag on any of your social media platforms because I love seeing what y'all make too. And that's it. This beauty is available on my website if you want to snag it. And I will be back this week with another tutorial. And can you guys believe it's already almost May? That's so crazy to me. This year is flying by for sure. Don't forget, all of the information where to find me and the products that I use will be listed down in the description box. And if you want to join my mentorship group, there is a link down there as well. Bye, y'all.